Mr. Secretary, many administration officials, including Secretary Granholm yesterday, frame infrastructure in the context of competition with China. So my question is, why do that? Why design and frame a policy based or in the context of what an adversary is doing?
I think because it's really important to understand that American competitiveness happens in a context. And when you see other countries, our allies, also our strategic competitors, doing more than we are, it challenges that fundamental idea that American life is what it is, partly because America is in first place in so many of these aspects of our national life. Only America's not in first place in infrastructure. Like I said, we're in 13th. So when you have a strategic competitor like China investing sometimes multiples of what we are in forms of transportation, we have to make a decision about whether we're content to be left behind or whether we actually want to remain number one. And for my dime, there's no good reason why we should settle for less, why we should be content. That it's nothing against Chinese citizens, but I'm not content that a Chinese citizen can count on a dramatically better standard of, let's say, train travel than a U.S. citizen. I think Americans should always have the best, and I think that's the tone that the president sets every day.
To follow up on that, is it partly also a messaging strategy to get more Republican support?
Well, I'll say that I've heard a lot of voices from across the aisle also expressing concern about whether America is falling behind in any number of strategic and economic dimensions. And again, a lot of that depends on what we're investing. And this is nothing new, right? I mean, part of what made the interstate highway system so important was an understanding that our national security in the Eisenhower era was well served by making sure that we had a more connected economy and country. That we're not in the Cold War, and this is not the Eisenhower era, but that principle that national security is at stake applies, especially when you consider that today, one of the biggest threats to our national security is the global security threat posed by climate change.
And it's time for a few more questions. Have you personally spoken with Senator Manchin about this proposal?
I'm looking forward to speaking with him soon.
This next week, or?
I don't remember the date, but I think we got a conversation in the works.
And he, of course, has an issue with the corporate tax rate going to 28%. Is, in his proposal, his counter-proposal has been 25%. Can this plan be successful with a 25% corporate tax rate?
Well, as you know, maybe the flagship piece that people are talking about most is the rate, but there's a lot of other things alongside that, right, in terms of what's going on with loopholes, the offshoring incentives, and other things. And I haven't had a chance to get a sense of how he views those things adding up, whether he envisions another element that makes up for the gap between 25 and 28. Those are the kinds of things I want to take up with him and have a good conversation on. Because I think, you know, for anyone who is on board, and by the way, I have yet to talk to anybody who, including in conversations with Republicans, who is against the idea of a big investment in infrastructure, right? So most of the dialogue we're having is around how we're going to pay for it. And we're really eager to hear the alternative suggestions for how to pay for it.
And have